Number 15. Harp is responsible for hurricanes. Dr. Majio Kaku appeared on TV to discuss the recurring hurricanes that destroy coastal towns every single year. What he said surprised everyone. Dr. Kaku confessed on live TV that the hurricanes were not natural, they were man-made.
I mean, did those really work then? We have some of these capabilities now?
Inconclusive. Even in the 60s, the CIA used this to bring down monsoons during the Vietnam War to wash out the Viet Cong.
He claimed that Harp was behind the hurricanes. The physicist stated in an interview with CBS that nanoparticles had been disseminated into the air by a government weather modification program, which activated the storms using lasers. Say that again? Gakona, Alaska is the base from which Harp transmits using a 180 antenna network. The antennas are directed towards the sky and they deliver 10 megawatts of power, acting as a strong high-frequency radio transmitter. They alter the ionosphere's composition layer, which exists 50 kilometers above the Earth. In fact, Dr. Kaku isn't alone in his belief. A 1999 European Parliament resolution stated that the environment had been altered by the Harp project to serve the military's aims, and a 2002 Russian Parliament report with signatures from 90 International and Defense Relations Committee MPs called the Harp project a geophysical weapon that was created to alter the atmosphere here on Earth. Could this deep dark secret be true, and our most recent destructive hurricanes the result of some dark government conspiracy? Some seem to think so, including this renowned physicist. Number 14. The Carjacking. During a siege in Queensland, Australia, Channel 7 News cameraman Peter Steer was assigned to film the reports on his very first day on the job. And what a first day that was. A gunman in flight flagged him down and admitted to a terrible crime. The biker had bloody hands, no shoes, and was weeping.
My name's Geordie Brook. I'm full of
what's up, police?
And done an extremely bad thing.
He confessed that he'd done something extremely bad. I hope she's alright. I think she's dead. He confessed on video to having attacked his partner, but when the cameraman was on the phone with police, the biker decided to continue his crime spree and draw a gun, hijacking the cameraman's van and fleeing the site. His flight was short, however, as he crashed into first a road sign and next a fuel tank at a gas station close at hand. Still, the suspect wasn't done in attempting destruction. He tried to find a cigarette lighter, assumingly to light the place up as the gas tank leaked. The suspect was taken and charged with armed robbery and attempted murder, among other charges. Number 13. Murder, She Wrote. The last thing you'd expect to hear on a reality TV show is about murder, but that's what baby Kala confessed to on a reality TV show in India called Sova Velyam Un Mai. She was married for 15 years, but had already begun fighting with her husband a year into the relationship. Then, in 2010, baby Kala met Gauri Shankar. The pair began having an affair, and when the husband found out, they schemed to take his life. And they did just that when her husband was only 39 years old, using a polythene bag. They smothered him on July 17, 2010. They told people he'd had a heart attack. Some speculate that baby Kala announced this so publicly on national television because her former lover planned to marry another woman. She and Shankar were both arrested. Number 12. Lance Armstrong's confession. When Lance Armstrong appeared on Oprah in 2013, it wasn't to celebrate his 7th Tour de France victory. It was to confess his use of performance-enhancing substances to cheat in the international bike race. Armstrong had been denying this use for over 10 years, but when Oprah got him in her sights, he finally came clean. In her first 90-minute interview on the OWN cable channel, no longer did we see the joyful, smiling Oprah we all know and love. She shot straight and asked Armstrong the tough questions regarding Armstrong's alleged pressuring of his cycling teammates to accompany him in using the substances. She asked him, "Were you a bully?"
All 7 of your Tour de France victories, did you ever take banned substances or blood dope?
Yes.
The exclusive interview dove into the details of his usage and his blood transfusion usage. He answered yes to all of Oprah's questions and elaborated on his cheating streak throughout the interview. This wasn't the only deep dark secret that Oprah pulled out of celebrities and others during her 25-year term as a daytime talk show host. Number 11, Off-Road Attempt. On the show The Bachelorette, based in New Zealand, the 21-year-old Bachelorette, Claudia Hoskins, revealed a very dark secret. She had suffered a terrible accident that left her with 19 broken bones. Most thought it was an accident, but it wasn't. She'd driven off the road on purpose after she'd caught her then boyfriend having multiple affairs. She had been with this boyfriend for 18 months when she discovered a phone conversation between him and a friend that revealed he'd been cheating all over town. After confronting him about it, she didn't know what to do and she just wanted it to end. She told Women's Daily, "I wasn't thinking about the consequences it would have on my family, my friends, and my boyfriend. I just made a split decision in the moment. I didn't think I could ever be happy again, and I didn't want to deal with the fallout of the relationship. Luckily, she survived, but she suffered punctured lungs, 6 broken ribs, a broken collarbone, foot and arm, a fractured spine, and liver and spleen damage. After spending a couple weeks in the hospital, she recovered and no longer ties her happiness to the man she's dating." Number 10, It Didn't Come Out. When 2-year-old James Patrick Bulger from Kirkby, England, was taken from the New Strand shopping centre, while his mother took her eyes off him for a brief moment, she was relieved to find surveillance footage that he'd been taken by 2 young boys. He'd be safe with them, she thought, but she was wrong. 10-year-old John Venables and Robert Thompson took James from the shopping center and treated him horrifically. They took his young life and left him on a railroad track, where he was found 2 days later. The 2 10-year-olds were charged with abduction and murder. The public thought they knew every gruesome detail of the cold-blooded actions, but when James's father Ralph appeared on Good Morning Britain on the 25th anniversary of his son's passing, he hinted that there were even more horrible details of the incident that weren't revealed to the public.
Oh, it just makes you cringe, you know, listening to this stuff in the courts and all this paedophile stuff with him and this manual he had, it's just sickening.
Ralph insisted in the interview that John Venables, now 35 years old, should be monitored at all times if released. He also said the killer should not remain anonymous. The host of the show said the public might then take the law into their own hands. That's when Ralph implied that the 2 boys had done much more destruction, which is both dark and disturbing. You've got to look at it to see how sick they really are. It didn't come out exactly what they did to him. It's a little bit of a lot of damage of what they've done, he said. The little bit that we know these 2 did is enough to make one sick to one's stomach, so maybe it's best that the rest remains a dark secret. Number 9, Murder Attempt. A 61-year-old woman was stabbed and had been hospitalized. The victim's 31-year-old daughter, Katie Nichols, was the primary suspect. She fled the scene, taking her daughter with her. The police didn't have to look far to find her, however. While reporters were interviewing the victim's close friend, who lived a few houses away, Katie emerged at the apartment and approached the news crew to confess. She said she had tried to kill her mother because she thought she was the Antichrist. She claimed her mother was the head of a satanic cult that was casting spells in an attempt to take the life of her daughter. "I had no idea that my mother was that powerful," Katie said. She felt no guilt about the attempted murder, admitting, "I stabbed her 3 times and she should have died." Katie likely believed that the fact her mother was still alive only validated her claims that this woman was the Antichrist.
The satanic cult in this city has been casting satanic spells on me for 4 days.
I'm exhausted. I came home, I found out that my mom was the ringleader and she was trying to kill my daughter.
The victim was rushed to the hospital after a neighbor heard the commotion, where she was able to inform police about her daughter's attack, which happened at 3:40 a.m. while she was sleeping. Katie tied her mother up, put a sock in her mouth, and threatened her. That's when she did the deed with a small kitchen knife, a larger knife, and a pair of scissors. She hid in a rural area and only returned to tell her tale to reporters. One of the reporters said she was frightened of Katie as she interviewed her, and she phoned police. Katie was charged with aggravated kidnapping and attempted first-degree murder. Number 8. Swedish rights activist confession. This dark secret told on live state TV in China may not be what it seems. Swedish human rights advocate Peter Jesper Dahlin had been detained by the Chinese government when he made his confession. He worked for an organization in China called Chinese Urgent Action Working Group, which is set on its website to undertake rapid response assistance for rights defenders in need. Doesn't seem like anything to apologize for. However, Dahlin appeared on national television to confess to violating Chinese laws, while the Chinese state-run news agency Xinhua claimed the organization Dahlin worked for was illegal and the activities he was involved in were designed to corrupt the country's national security. They also claim that China Action trained others to gather, fabricate, and distort information about China to use in human rights reports for overseas organizations, and that they took huge amounts of money into the country from overseas undeclared.
Certain people that we have supported at one time or another have gone on to do acts in clear violation of the law. And we know that in some cases, such as Su Shanglan or Xing Xingxian, there have been very serious crimes.
Xinhua said China Action had been smashed by Chinese authorities. In his apology that aired on CCTV, Dahlin admitted to harming the Chinese government and its people and said he was sorry for having done so. Whether these statements were a dark secret in and of themselves, or whether the dark secret is that of the Chinese government forcing the people they've detained to make these statements, is for the viewer to decide. Number 7. A Million Little Pieces. When James Frey wrote the incredible memoir, A Million Little Pieces, Oprah had him on her show to celebrate this book about substance abuse and living by the 12-step program. But not long after the book became a bestseller, The Smoking Gun posted an article entitled A Million Little Lies exposing James Frey's fiction addiction. The article claimed Frey had made up portions of his memoir, the extent of his criminal record, for instance, as well as a train car accident that Frey had alleged to have happened in Michigan in 1986. One of his biggest tall tales was about colliding with a cop while high and subsequently fighting with a number of cops, which resulted in an 87-day stint in jail. However, the Smoking Gun found that Frey had been cooperative in his arrest, had nothing but minor offenses, and was let go after 5 hours. Frey's publishers initially backed him, but after hard evidence came to light, they included disclaimers in subsequent publications, incorporating an author's note and a publisher's note. Frey admitted that he'd altered small details in the book for literary effect, but that his addiction was real and was the backbone of his memoirs. Oprah also voiced her opinion that her viewers had been inspired by the book and that it was the publisher's job to confirm the authenticity of the story. However, when Frey appeared on Oprah's show in 2006, her tone was less sympathetic. She wanted a direct answer from Frey. Did he lie, or had he truly just altered minor details? This is when James Frey finally admitted on live TV that the Smoking Gun's report had been true. He'd spent a few hours in jail rather than 87 days, and with such exaggerated inaccuracies, who knows how much of the memoir was fabricated. Number 6. Israeli Spy. China state television is not the only one to air alleged confessions from foreigners in their midst. Iranian state television aired the so-called confession of an Iranian academic who also had residency in Sweden and who supposedly served as an agent for Israel in order to pass on important information to them. The aim was to assassinate senior Iranian nuclear scientists. Israel, they said, was trying to throw their nuclear energy program off the rails. What did this man get in return? Iran claims he received payment and European residency. He was arrested on charges of espionage in April 2016. The report given by Iranian state television alleged that he had been involved in the assassinations of the scientists, which spanned 3 years from 2010 to 2013. He wasn't the only one arrested for the assassinations of the nuclear scientists. An Iranian athlete was also found guilty and had his life taken in 2012. In his televised confession, he said, "They were showing me pictures of some people or satellite photos of nuclear facilities and were asking me to give them information about that." The wife of this man, who lectured in Stockholm, claimed that the confessions had been forced by Iran, whose Supreme Court then gave him the harshest sentence. After 3 months in solitary confinement, she said, his interrogators told him that he would be released only if he reads from a text in front of the camera. She continued, saying that if he strayed from the text in the slightest, they would shout at him and cut the film. According to Iran, a sabotage and terrorist network bent on assassinations and bombings was discovered in Shiraz, a city to the south. Iran claims the network had ties to the CIA, Israel, and additional nations neighboring their country. So, is there any truth to this confession, or is it entirely coerced? Number 5. Survivor Tiebreaker. For fans of Survivor, one part of the show remained a mystery up until the Game Changers reunion show. What happens if there's a tie? The show's host, Jeff Probst, revealed the secret. The champion of that season, Sarah Lucina, could have easily been thwarted by Brad Culpepper. Brad had chosen to take Sarah to the finals, but had he chosen Tai Trang, the jury vote would have resulted in a 5-5 tie. This was figured out when Probst polled the jury to consider how they would have voted. Everybody asks, what would you do in the case of a tie at the final tribal? We would have had one had you said, you know what? I'm going to keep Tai and get rid of Sarah, Probst said. Then came the reveal by Probst of one of the deepest secrets of Survivor, which has survived for many years. If there's a tie in the final trial council, the final vote is decided by the contestant that is not in the tie. In this case, Troyzin would have decided the final vote, and according to Troyzin, the tie-breaking vote would have gone to Brad. So choosing Sarah cost him $1 million. Number 4. Live Confession. When 45-year-old Brian Hawkins appeared on KRCR TV in Redding, California, he planned to unburden himself of the guilt he felt for something he had done in 1993. He participated in the murder of 19-year-old Frank McAllister, and in his confession, he also implicated his girlfriend and her brother in the ordeal. Hawkins claimed that the trio had taken McAllister into a hidden wooded area where they took his life and afterwards left his car in a Costco parking lot. The confession was not spontaneous. Hawkins called KRCR TV in advance and explained that he wanted to confess his role in the killing on television. He claimed that his guilt and his faith pressured him to reveal the horror within. The station said they would not air the footage unless he confessed to the police as well, and could confirm that Hawkins' tale was true. God in Christ and these things that have happened over the course of 25 years have pushed me to do the right thing. Hawkins said in the interview, I know the wrong can't be changed, but this is the closest I can come to doing the right thing. Hawkins was visibly shaken and lowered his head in the interview, expressing the guilt he felt since that fateful day, calling every moment since horrible and a nightmare. The case had gone cold, and investigators said this admittance of guilt was their very first big break following the confession. Hawkins gave himself up to police along with his accomplices.
Absolutely horrible every day. Almost every minute of every day has been a nightmare. I'm going to turn myself in next door at the sheriff's department for a crime I was involved in years ago, and somebody lost their life.
On top of murder charges, they have been charged with robbery and burglary. Number 3, China confesses. This is a follow-up to the Swedish human rights activist who confessed on China's national broadcaster, CCTV. Another confession video was broadcast live, which revealed confessions from a lawyer who worked for Beijing Fengri, as well as 2 of his firm's employees. These confessions were shown prior to court proceedings, as China allows police to detain suspects for up to 40 days without releasing or arresting them. This gives police time to coerce a confession. When individuals are shown to confess, these confessions are not unlike the shame parades that occurred during China's Cultural Revolution, in which intellectual people were mocked and tortured in the streets. As one Weibo user puts it, now it's happening on CCTV. Chinese human rights defenders researcher Francis Eve told courts that by broadcasting these so-called confessions, state media and Chinese authorities are rejecting the basic norms of a rule of law system, including the presumption of innocence and due process rights. Trial by state media is not the kind of trial held in a country ruled by law. The title below the lawyer and employees read criminal suspects. In their confessions, they explained how they created rumors online that manipulated court cases in which they represented ordinary citizens against government officials or authorities. They also described how they paid people to protest in order to sway the public in their favor. The lawyer in question, Huang Lin, pointed the finger at the firm's director, who said he was driven by unspeakable political purposes. This trend of broadcasting confessions is not new, however, the high-profile nature of the confessors is. 5 years ago, these confessions would be given by low-profile criminals, but now activists, journalists, lawyers, and others are getting shafted. Some in the public are blasting what they see as the government's shame parades, and some hope that the rest of the public will follow closely behind and start seeing these confessions as an outrageous joke. Here's hoping. Number 2, Nixon's apology. What's bigger than a government secret? The confession of that secret on national television. When the Watergate scandal was underway, President Richard Nixon did an interview with British television host David Frost. Some call the interview the closest thing we will get to a trial, and although Nixon was careful not to confess to criminal guilt in the interview, his admittance of regret was, to some, tantamount to a confession. In his words, he let down the American people, a weight of guilt he'd have to come to terms with for the remainder of his life.
I let down my friends. I let down the country. I let down our system of government, dreams of all those young people that ought to get into government.
The confession was seen by some as humiliating, even more so than admitting guilt to the obstruction of justice charges that he faced. Some mocked Nixon for what they saw as a cheap confession, sarcastically noting what a kind heart he certainly must have to admit such guilt, but others were sympathetic and believed his confession to be genuine, that he really did feel as though he let down the American people. The thing is, Gerald Ford pardoned Nixon, so he would never be put under the microscope by judge and jury. This on-air confession was the most the public would ever get out of him. Some accused Frost of baiting Nixon, while those who were directly involved on Capitol Hill in the impeachment process said he was still trying to cover his tail, and that the Frost-Nixon interview revealed clearly, conclusively, and finally that Richard Nixon abused the powers of his high office as president, and this seemed to be true, as Nixon admitted to Frost at least 3 things that differed from the record. These 3 differences include admitting that he knew Gordon Liddy was part of the Watergate burglary prior to June 22, 1972, He never admitted this to authorities, suggesting that he didn't intend to buy Howard Hunt's silence by paying him exorbitant amounts of money. He paid him $276,000, while he paid other defendants only $20,000. Howard Hunt knew about the White House's involvement in Watergate. This is in opposition to what was found in the tapes. And lastly, he claimed he directed John Dean to create a report on the scandal, but that too never came to pass according to the transcripts. Unfortunately, having been pardoned, Nixon never faced a trial. The only return viewers got on their investment was his admittance of some remorse. Before we get to number 1, my name is Chills and I hope you're enjoying my narration. If you're curious about what I look like in real life, then go to my Instagram at DylanIsChillinYT and tap that follow button to find out. I'm currently doing a super poll on my Instagram. If you believe ghosts are real, then go to my most recent photo and tap the like button. If you don't, DM me saying why. When you're done, come right back to this video to find out the number 1 entry. Also, follow me on Twitter at YTChills because that's where I post video updates. It's a proven fact that generosity makes you a happier person, so if you're generous enough to hit that subscribe button and the bell beside it, then thank you. This way you'll be notified of the new videos we upload every Tuesday and Saturday. Number 1. The Discovery. In 2011, Stephen McDaniels was giving an interview about the girl next door, Lauren Giddings, who had disappeared and was feared dead. The two were classmates at Mercer University Law School. As Stephen calmly gave the interview live on air, he was informed that the girl's body had been discovered by police. No one suspected Stephen during his interview, but when he was told of the police's findings, his tone changed and he appeared panicked.
I mean, the door was locked when everyone got here. I mean, we just don't know where she is.
What about in the parking lot area? I know they've been doing a lot of, I think that's where they have recovered the body or whatever they recovered from there.
Body?
Had you heard, had you seen anything there? Had you seen anything there? I mean, we don't know if this is the same person. You know what I mean? Like, they took out a body there earlier. We don't know if it's the same person or not. So that's how we're trying to ask people if they know who lived there. Are you okay, sir?
I think I need to sit down.
Okay.
He repeated that he didn't know anyone who would want to hurt her and was in full-blown panic mode, which made viewers and police suspect him, and their suspicions were validated when McDaniel confessed to spying on Lauren Giddings for several months through her webcam. He then broke into her room, masked and gloved, and strangled her in June 2011. After disposing of her body, he participated in the search for her. Feigning surprise, McDaniel rightly was sentenced to life in prison. Thanks for checking out this video. Be sure to subscribe because we upload new countdowns every Tuesday and Saturday. Or if you're still not convinced, here are some of our other videos that I think you'd like. Enjoy!